Hi, I bought a new musical instrument, but not this one, this one. To buy new things for me is not easy. I check details 100 times to avoid surprises. I try to control my obsession for technology shopping, but I also need to detach my eyes from the computer screen, and in particular for making music. So, here it is. The Korg Volca FM2 is a synthesizer. It's a renewed version. The old version, the Korg Volca FM, had 3 notes polyphony, 6 notes polyphony for the new FM2. Very important. Don't forget to subscribe my channel, otherwise I come to your place and I put Gouda cheese in your synthesizer case. 64 programs for the new version instead of 32. Velocity, blah blah blah. You can search all these technical updates anywhere on the internet, but I would like to share my thought and I hope you may find useful. I will also compare the Volca FM with the IK Multimedia Uno Synth, because they are the cheapest option of 2 different worlds, the FM synthesis for the Volca FM and the pure analog synthesis for IK Multimedia Uno Synth. Both instruments sound incredibly well. Then 15 years ago you have to spend at least 3-4 times to get comparable hardware or had the possibility for tweaking sound. They are small great synthesizers, good for beginners and interesting for experienced musicians, but still far from being the only instrument to write music or play a live performance. They are tiny and they will probably appeal people who don't have a big space available as a music room. The new Volca FM has both MIDI input and MIDI output. I tried to program sequences on it, but I had a feeling that I always end up preferring an external keyboard to play, using the MIDI input. Wow! What's the MIDI out for? The idea to use the Volca FM as a keyboard or sequencer to control external devices is almost pointless, as I just said. The possibility to use the MIDI output for making a backup of programs doesn't work. The Volca FM cannot transmit CZEX, as Korg confirmed, at least at the moment. Let's hope in future firmware update. The new Volca FM can theoretically receive CZEX, but what are CZEX? They are data that the iconic DX7 transmit for transferring sound settings. There is an interesting app web-based called Synth. This app can create program and transfer any change in real time to the Volca FM. But loading the DX7 program with this app is hypothetical, because Synth can only load 1 program at a time. Most of the CZEX you can find on the internet are banks of sounds, the so-called cartridge. Another free app for transmitting DX7 programs is Dexed, and it works. Sometimes. Sometimes doesn't. From the interface of these 2 apps, you can also figure out how many parameters a 6-operator FM synthesizer has. It's quite obvious that trying to control them all with the Volca hardware could be a bit challenging. The IK Uno Synth is a monophonic analog synthesizer. It means that it can only play 1 note at a time. Like the Volca, it's got 16-step sequencer, but differently the Korg can chain up to 16 patterns. It means like having 256 steps in total. The Volca FM has a bit confusing way for storing programs and patterns. There are two independent kinds of memory, as I said, 64 for programs and 16 for patterns. I give you an example. This is the program. And this is the pattern. And I save the pattern. If I move to another pattern and I move back to the first one, as you can see, the program is recalled too. If I change a parameter of this program and I do not save this program, when I leave this program, the pattern, or I simply switch the Volca off, I lose the change in the program. Instead, if I save the program, when I recall the pattern, it will play as expected. It's a bit fiddling compared to the Uno Synth that have 100 program memory where to save both patterns and sound changes. Uno Synth has MIDI input, MIDI output and a USB port that allows to connect to its own editor. The Uno editor obviously works smoothly to transmit and receive MIDI settings and control change, and surprise surprise, it has even some control mode than the hardware itself. It has an arpeggiator, not very sophisticated, but it works. The Volca has an arpeggiator where you can choose different kind of performance and different time signature. The Volca doesn't have the so-called latch and note button that 90% of these world arpeggiators have. You can solve the issue just playing the note in the pattern sequence, but involves some more work. It has the active step and the warp active step, two very useful tools in case you like experimental time signature. The active step lets you choose which step you want Volca to play. For example, if you disable step 13 and 15, the only 14 steps still active will be performed. Instead, with warp active step, when you disable some steps, the Volca will play the step left over using the same time like the all 16 steps were still active. In a certain sense, it stresses the pattern to match the time signature. Step recording with Uno Synth is quite simple and intuitive. Enable recording, choose the note, choose the octave or the length of the note or any control change. The Volca doesn't have step recording. Are you sure? With the Active Step feature, you can work on one node at a time, push the red button, and record notes and control change like it was a step sequencer. My final thought is the Volca has some interesting feature. They could be effective from both the sides and the needs of involving external hardware and software. I had the feeling it's like driving a Ferrari with a 3-speed gear, but you're still paying the price of a city car. The Uno Synth is a simpler instrument that can rely on its own hardware and can also save everything you do on a computer. See you soon! Peace!